Hi, everybody. Welcome to STEM class. Today, we are going to continue with our digital citizenship lessons involving how to find credible news on the internet. So, last week we began learning how to find credible news on the internet, and we're going to continue. We're going to start with a review, though. So, our essential question is, how do we find credible information on the internet? Our learning objectives are: 1, to learn the reasons that people put false or misleading information on the internet. This is a recap of last week's lesson. Today, the concentration is on learn the criteria for differentiating fake news from credible news. And next week, we're going to practice evaluating the credibility of information you find on the internet. So the focus today is on learning criteria for differentiating fake news from credible news. So again, as a reminder of last week's lesson, why might information you find on the internet not be true? The first reason is that the information might be written as an editorial. Editorials are articles or blogs that are meant to persuade the reader of the author's opinion and maybe include bias or leave out important facts. An editorial is when you have a strong opinion or the author has a strong opinion about something and wants to change people's minds. Satire. Satire is when websites or articles are meant to be funny and they make fun of a subject, and it also includes information that can be untrue. Hoaxes are articles that are meant to fool the reader into believing something that isn't true by being as realistic as possible. So these are reasons why people post things on the internet that are not true. When you are looking for information on the internet, we need some vocabulary words that we need to understand what they mean. The first one is credible. Credible means it's able to be believed, that it's trustworthy. When you're considering how credible something is, you need to evaluate it for its information. You always want the third choice, which is credible news. Fake news is information that's very surprising, even unbelievable. The website that it's on is biased or may not be part of a credible news, academic, or government organization. The author's bio or previous articles show a bias on the issue, and key points cannot be corroborated by other credible sites. So if you find information that seems to fit that category, then it's fake news. Then there's questionable news. This is information may be surprising, but it's not unbelievable. The website is not part of a credible news, academic, or government organization. The author's bio or previous articles may show bias, or the article is an editorial or an opinion piece. And most key points can be corroborated. So this is the iffy situation. You're not 100% sure that it's credible, but it's not completely fake either. What we're looking for is credible, which means it's information that may or may not be surprising, but it does make sense. The website is part of a credible news, academic, or governmental organization. The author has no clear bias on the issue, and the article is not an editorial or an opinion piece, and all key points can be corroborated by other credible sites. This is not an easy task. So we have to evaluate. This is another vocabulary word that's very important. We need to carefully examine something to figure out its value. We need to determine if it's bias. Bias means that the person writing it has a preference for one thing over another in a way that's unfair. Corroboration means that you can find other sources that confirm or supports a news story, an article, or a piece of information. Now, Common Sense Media has given us some information that can help us when we are trying to determine whether something is credible or not. It's called the Internet Investigator Checklist, and it has 3 items. Every time you read an article that you want to evaluate, you take these 3 steps and determine if it's credible or not. So the first one is read closely. That means you may read the article and you may have to reread it to determine, does it make sense? Is it believable? While you're reading, identify the main idea by analyzing the text features and the web page and by reading the text. Take note of anything that's surprising or hard to believe or that gives you a strong emotional reaction. After you have your main idea, analyze the source. Does it come from a credible, unbiased source? What you're going to do is find out information about the site owner and the author by exploring the site and searching the web. Search the site by clicking on the links that give you the about information, the owner of the site, and then cross-reference it by doing a Google search. And the third step is look for corroboration. Do other credible sources say the same thing? See if the main idea and key points of the article are also reported by other credible sites. Now, a table can help you work with an article. And what we've done here is created a table. We are going to, as an example, use a case for allowing 16-year-olds to vote. The table represents the first column, the example. That's where the article is located. The second column is read closely. We're going to put the information after we read closely in that column. We'll put the main idea. Then we're going to analyze the source and look for corroboration. What I would like you to do now is pause your video. I've given you this article. I want you to read it closely and determine the main idea. Once you've finished reading the article closely and you have your main idea, I'd like you to return to the video and resume. Okay, now that we've read the article closely, we're going to start evaluating it. The first thing is that when I read the article, we came up with a main idea. And the main idea is, in 2016, a 15-year-old student in San Francisco helped get a proposition on the ballot that would lower the voting age to 16. He did this because he was frustrated that young people couldn't vote on the measures and propositions that affect them most. It's not a rehash of what is written in the article, it's just the main idea. So we've done that. The next step is to analyze the source. I'm going to look closely at the article itself. I'm going to look at the banner and see what the website is. I'm going to try to figure out some other information about it. I'm going to click on the about for Vox, and I'm also going to Google Vox. I'm also considering right here the author. So first I Googled Vox. I found that Vox is a general interest site, and it's also liberal leaning according to Wikipedia. It is established. The website's been around since 2014, so it has a history. From the About the Website link, Vox explains the news. And this gives a statement of information about the mission of the website. According to Wikipedia, Vox is a liberal-leaning American news and opinion website owned by Vox Media, and the website was founded in 2014. Again, all this information is lining up, and it shows that it is that it is coordinated and has a history to it. So it could be legitimate. I also looked up Zachary Crocker, Crockett, who is the author. He has written information and articles outside of the Vox platform. He's published them in other news sites and also writes other things. So, when I analyze the source, my conclusions are that Vox is a news website founded in 2014, and that's from the About section. It has a liberal reputation, but has won awards for its news journalism. That's from Wikipedia. And the author has written for many different news outlets on many different topics. None of the articles show an obvious bias on the issue. So now I've completed 2 steps of the analysis. I've read closely, I have the main idea, and I've analyzed the source. Now I need to look for corroboration. When I Googled the topic 16-year-olds to vote, I see that Vox came up as one of the answers, but also New York Post has articles on the same topic, CNN, and the New York Times. So I can find articles that are related to the topic and that support the information. So when I look for the corroboration, I put in the column several other outlets did reporting on the story, including the San Francisco Chronicle and the New York Times. So now that I've had this information, I can consider whether or not this is a credible source or not. And I'm going to say, how credible is it? My choices are fake news, questionable, or credible. And in this case, I think it is credible. And the reason I think it's credible is that it doesn't seem outlandish or unbelievable, and it comes from a credible news source. The author doesn't seem to have any biases that would affect his reporting, and the story is corroborated by other credible news sources. So I think that in this case, this is credible news. When we are evaluating our information, we need to go through these steps each and every time to make sure that we are getting news that is credible. It's up to us, each one of us, to read and think and be knowledgeable on the events that are happening and the decisions we have to make.